Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Mulder, and tonight I have two good friends of mine. Anyway, the first one goes by the name of Mobius, and Mobius, he's been doing this engineering gig for like 40 years, broadcast engineering. I don't know. Would you call yourself a computer expert, Mobius?
Computers, satellite TV, communications electronics, all of these things are my bread and butter going back to my childhood.
Oh, okay. So you were okay. And then, let's see, did TV installations, and since you're 13 years old, I did a bunch of engineering for Joshua P. Warren. He's the guy that designed and manufactures the Sunshine Simple generator, and I know we did a show on that. And you really been doing well with that generator since last time you were on the show, haven't you, there, Mobius? Uh,
It's been amazing. All of my first customers before that site, we have a new site that's now online, and it has the EMP kit and everything is there. That it is now the epitome of the solution to 1 second after book for
oh,
protecting and having power. And so all of the first cells before we could even get the site up that we discussed here, they all went up to Virginia to intelligence officers who knew about it, and every single one knowing what's going on in Ukraine and knowing that we're pretty much in a, what would you call it, dire political circumstances with Russia. Would that be a good explanation?
um, I was thinking dumpster fire constantly fed by gasoline.
Yeah, as bad as you think it is, if you actually know how it is, it's actually worse. And so the most likely outcome is an EMP attack of a limited nuclear attack. And so the fact that all of the intelligence people bought my Sunshine Simple units with the EMP kit as my first customers, this is the damn best endorsement I could get. And so it was
Oh,
fun sending all those up to the people up in Virginia. And,
oh, oh
even
yeah.
one of the people in this conversation is an investor in the project. So that was this person saw the idea and said, "Oh hell yeah, this is exactly what is needed right now." So thank
Oh,
you
okay.
over there to the other person. Rich invested and got this thing fully built and done and monetized. So
Yeah.
and well,
And
let's get him on.
yeah, well, hey, and Rich is, I let them, they wrote their own intros, so I wouldn't screw it up. Okay, Rich is a retired intel officer for 20 years experience in both government and contracting. Oh, hey there, Rich, former intel officer. How are you doing there, sir?
Hey, Professor Mulder, how's it going down there tonight?
Oh, it's going well. It's going well. How are things up there in the wonderful state of Virginia?
Things are going quite well. I'm west of the Blue Ridge, so that makes it easier than if I were in actual Northern Virginia.
Yeah, well, I know where you're at, and in case of evacuation, uh, boy, they got a straight shot for you, man. I'm just telling you, the crowd will be
I
heading
think
your
we're going to
direction.
get this far.
But no, anyway, tonight I thought I'd bring you guys on. We've been trying to do this for the last couple of days, and it's kind of a two-tier thing. Number one, these guys are super intelligent, and they really are good at their craft, and so I thought I'd bring them on here and we kind of get kind of get their point of view on a couple of things. The two things I wanted to touch tonight is the Mandela effect and this flat Earth slash planet around Earth argument. I wouldn't call it an argument. I've been doing a series of shows with Dr. John Stamey, and we had Mark Sargent on there, and he decided, he was kind enough to come on for, three shows, both are about an hour long. And we were talking about flat Earth and the reason why they believe that the Earth is flat. And I would try to give them, little questions that were put together by Mobius here, and also in conjunction with Rich. And so I thought I'd bring you guys on here tonight and we kind of discuss this in a little bit, in a setting that's not really being pressured or whatever. And you guys can pretty much, discuss or say anything you want to about it. Now, my first question, And if I understand, Rich, you know how to. You are a licensed pilot, or if you're not a licensed pilot,
Yes,
you
yes.
have been a licensed pilot. Okay.
It's called a certificate. I have a private pilot certificate.
Okay. Now, my question to you is: have you been up high enough to see the curvature of the Earth?
Not in a Cessna 172.
Okay. Have you seen the curvature of the Earth through an
Well, I
airplane?
feel like this. I'm agnostic on the topic because I know it's controversial at the moment, even though some people will either side there doesn't seem to be a happy middle ground anywhere. So I
Yeah.
will say that when I have been airborne at perhaps like 38, 40,000 feet, it seems to me that I can begin to see the curvature of the Earth. But then I've heard people say, well, you're just looking out of the airplane window and the window's causing the curvature, which is a visual effect that you're getting, and you're really not seeing that. So,
Oh, so sort of like a fisheye lens effect.
well, that's what some people would say. So
Yeah.
to answer the question, of course, because I've not been in orbit, and have seen the Earth from orbit, I can't say what it looks like at all. I mean, from a strictly empirical sense,
Yeah.
that's pretty much my stance on it. And now I will tell you this. So for example, like I'll talk to someone, say in Japan, and it'll be night here, and I'm talking to them on a video call, and I see that it's broad daylight in Japan. I know for a fact I'm talking to Japan because I've been in that particular spot myself before, so I recognize everything that's in the video. So,
Hmm.
if it's daytime there and it's nighttime there, I'm not quite sure how that fits into the flat Earth thing, but I'll just leave you with that and turn the
Yeah.
conversation back over to the two of you.
Yeah. Well, there's another thing too that I kind of want to bring up here, and you sound like the kind of man that may have had experience or either have witnessed psychological operations. Am I right
Well,
or
we
wrong?
certainly have we certainly have since 2020. We've been experiencing the best that AI and the our local friends in government can do.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing that gets me, and I think I passed this photo to both you and Mobius on Telegram. It was It's four different space agencies. I think one was U.S., another was Russia. I think China might have been involved. I don't know if the other one was Japan or whatever. I think it was, but anyway, there's like four different space agencies, and they were showing a picture of the planet from orbit. Okay, well, guess what? Each of these agencies had a different. The globe looked entirely different for these agencies. Sometimes the continents would be in different positions, or they'd be out of proportion, or different colors. There'd be like a different color scale or whatever. There's no uniformity, is what I'm trying to say. These four things, and I wonder, okay, is this all BS? Is this just somebody trying to keep their job and providing some kind of a photoshopped type of representation of the planet, or what's going on there? Because I think I told both of you guys I met a gentleman who worked for JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, and the history behind that organization is a little shady because of Jack Parsons was
Oh,
a
Jack.
Satanist.
Oh, yeah. And the canyon.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah, that
Jules.
guy. Oh yeah, yeah, he's one of the founding fathers of NASA.
Yeah, he sure is. They don't
Yeah.
like to talk about that part of it.
Oh no, that, and plus we got a guy who was the chief scientist for all the V2 rockets back in World War II.
Werner von Braun.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, these are the two guys that started NASA, ladies and gentlemen. Look it up. You don't have to believe us. The brain trust behind NASA was a Satanist, a cultist, and a Nazi. That's
You
no
can't make that
BS.
stuff up.
That's no BS. So, I always joked, well, if you could, what could go wrong here? Where could be the room for deception with this thing? And I've always been questioning a lot of the stuff that goes on, and I don't know if YouTube's really the forum or the platform to really get involved in heavy conversation about this without getting a strike. But there's some really bad stuff going on here that doesn't make any sense, just from a logical point of view or from a scientific point of view. And that's the reason why I question all this stuff personally. That's the reason why I question it.
I'll
And
take a
so,
shot at this, can I?
please.
Okay. I did every year of fact or fake I was the forensic UFO video investigator, and also I helped them recreate things so that they could show like the Battle of LA and other UFO phenomena. And I'm not a debunker, but I like the truth. So I'm going to tell you that 99.9% of the things out there are not. But
Hmm.
subject, let's just discuss the NASA videos. Many, many times they would send me a NASA video and ask for my opinion of it. We can go back to the moon landing videos and everything.
Hmm.
Why I believe that the Earth is round is certainly not based on NASA videos or Chinese videos or anything else. There is airbrushing, weird distortions, color changes, manipulations. All of the video is very strange that comes from NASA, and there's more than ample evidence that huge amounts are faked.
Hmm.
Now, with that, you and I have argued whether or not the Apollo landed on the moon. I was not there. I do not know. I know we have a reflector on the moon that a laser can bring back the reflection, which could be done robotically. I have
Hmm.
no opinion. And your guest talked about the fact, why do spacesuits not explode? Why is the ISS actually populated? I don't know if the ISS is populated. I do know that Rich and I can use a repeater of the ISS as it passes over, and we can communicate on ham radio. So I believe it's orbit. I understand the logistics of orbit, and I understand, satellites in space. But I cannot make the case based on an academic stance that we've been to the moon. I believe we've been to the moon. Believing in something is not an academic stance. I think Rich would agree with that. So when it comes to the Chinese videos, I've watched the Chinese knock over a glass of water and the water spills to the floor in their space station, and it's just absolutely stunningly not accurate. I've
Hmm.
also watched, you sent me a video from the ISS of them doing a flip, and I have never seen a more obvious flip that was done on some type of mimic device. And I cannot even imagine why we would fake being on the ISS if we were on the ISS. Now, Rich will have some opinions on this, and I want to hand off to him. But I agree with you that all space videos are suspect, and you keep seeing the signs that there's a line, the cubical line, like 2001, and they were made in the same style as the 2001 movie. There's very little moon footage that does not meet that same style of potential faking. And that's very suspicious to me. But with
Hmm.
that said, that is an opinion. That is not an academic stance. I will make my rounder claim on academics, not on opinion. Now, Rich, I want you to jump in here, and you have opinions about the space videos that you have your observations. Your turn. Peg, you're it.
I've read some relatively simple books on orbital mechanics. This information has been around for a long time. It's really simple trigonometry for the most part. Um, I'm fairly convinced that it's round or like a pear or whatever. I mean, again, I have no way of really telling you for an absolute fact that it is. I can't say that anything is, but we'll just go with that. But even given that we have done these things, or that they've done these things, been there, been in orbit, been on the moon, but a lot of the photographs and the videos, just why does someone keep putting obvious fakes into the mix, or like the one with one of the Apollo missions where they were putting a transparency of the Earth in the window, and you could actually see that happening on camera. And people have actually confronted that astronaut with this before, and that didn't turn out very pleasantly in public. So I don't understand, like, why all the fakes? If how hard could orbiting be? And the space station is obviously something's real. We see it. We can actually see it pass over. I can see it with binoculars or a telescope even better. And like you said, we can use the repeater on it as it goes by. We've got, like, what is it, about 30, I forget how long, it's not a very long window, but for as long as it's going from horizon to horizon, it's VHF, we have a straight shot at it. So in theory, we can use it. And people do. But so is it manned? I can't answer any of these questions.
Vision. So we can see in Gen 3 night vision things that no one can imagine. I'll send you a photo so you can post it of Gen 3 night vision so you have it to show what we're looking at. So we know what's orbiting and can see objects as they pass over an orbit. For us, it's not speculation.
And we can see objects doing things that are seemingly impossible at times.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a subject too. We see stars that suddenly we can't quite figure out what they are, and they're bright, and we're kind of like, we question, wait, I don't think there's a planet, a star that's supposed to be there. And in orbital mechanics, things can't sit in orbit. They're constantly in motion and free fall, and suddenly something comes to life, it just goes flying off. And Rich has now seen this, and this is supposed to be impossible. But that's another business we do is paratemporal, where we sell third gen night vision so that you yourself can see crazy, impossible stuff that's up in the sky. We like that, and we and I both do that.
Yep.
Yes,
and if nothing
yes.
better, if you're bored, there's nothing like watching meteors skipping off the atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, yeah. You fixed me up with a nice little set for myself here, and yeah, those things. I really do appreciate the many applications that those night vision goggles have. I mean, that's some serious tech. But no, yeah, that's one of the things I was looking at. You know, their response was when it comes to satellites, that NASA is the largest buyer of helium in the world, and that what we're looking at is not satellites per se, but it's basically helium balloons with equipment, at the bottom of the balloon, and they're just going back and forth or maintaining some kind of an orbit. Which, hell, I frankly, I don't. Yeah, great idea. I can see where they're coming from, possibly, but there's just too much. There's too much orderly things that makes me question even that theory.
Okay, here we now step out as academics. And Rich did not actually tell you, but he has a degree in electronics and electrical engineering also. So now here you go. We now are qualified experts to continue this conversation. So go first, Rich, or you want me to start?
Oh, you go first. Go for it.
Okay. Coincidentally, back when I was about 16, I wrote one of the first computer programs. And it was for people who were in areas that, because of zone restrictions, they could not have permanent satellite dishes in their yard. This is back in the 80s when satellite dishes, a 6-foot satellite dish barely functioned, and 8-foot was adequate. Making a 6-foot function was quite a lot of work back then. But you have to point it at the satellite exactly, or else it doesn't work. There's no ambiguity. You either were on the satellite or you had nothing. So this is the way the math works. I still have the program, and anybody who wants me to send it so they can audit can verify the trick. You're dealing with satellites geostationary through 22,300 miles. How do I know this? Because across the entire US, it varies very slightly. Mostly in the center of the US is south. If you come back to our side of the United States in North Carolina, you're going from southwest to south. If you're on the far side of the United States in California, you're going more from the southeast to the south. But you have a very minor amount of difference. How would I know it's the same satellite? Because I've installed them up, down, back, and forth within 1,000-mile radius. And I had to use these computations even to bring the mounts. They are a geostationary mount across the satellite belt, which is the equator, and you have to track them so the arm moved the dish across the satellite belt. And I did thousands of installations and wrote this program so that basically horny people back in the day could flap out their satellite dish and get the Playboy channel, or if they had a decoder and they had some way to subscribe, because you could at North Carolina, they could bring it way down and they could get American triple ecstasy, which nobody wants to discuss. It was one of the low satellites, or the few legit families used to watch down in Galaxy One all the main cable stuff, Disney, HBO, Showtime, all that was down there. But it was work to move the dish when it was not automated with a tracker arm. And this program, I never thought about it, never thought about in the future. Now I would be using this as proof of the round earth, but it would not have worked if the earth was flat. And there's another statement that was made, and I'm directly addressing one of the past people. They were wrong about something. Now we have the small dish network dishes, and they said if you can't find a satellite, that you just point it at a cellular thing and it works. No, that's misinformation, and they missed it. When you're pointing at a satellite, it has to be exact. Go online and read how much the people with RVs struggle when they go from one location to another to align these. There's also the East Coast, Middle, and West Coast feeds because of all the local programming that has to be put up on the satellites. But there is an option to get Dish on cellular. It uses a Cisco receiver device, but you have to be within cellular service. You know that when you come to my house, that you pass a sign somewhere on the way that says BF Egypt, and that is when your cell signal drops off. There is no cell here. There is no way.
That's correct.
There is no. So Dish originally, its entire nature was to bring programming to people who had no way to get signals, no cellular internet, nothing. They lived outside of the areas of coverage. And so now there are 150 cities because Dish bought a whole bunch of like cellular services, and they have lost customers, so they have bandwidth. They're selling their signals in these 150 cities cheaper Dish network on these Cisco receivers using the cellular network. But we're talking 5G and 4G, which is basically 1.2 gigahertz, 800 megahertz. And when you're talking about the Dish network, you're talking 8 gigahertz. And it's completely different. They are not interchangeable. And your guest, that was one thing they said, that they were not educated and did not know what they were talking about. I'm most willing to have a debate with them, but mostly everything else they said, I agreed with, but that I did not. So with that note, if you actually go online and use RVs and Dish Network, you can verify this. But with simple math, we could go to the same satellite, go across the United States, say go up and down, take about 7 measurements, and a 6th grader could figure out that you're dealing with a satellite that is thousands of miles away. Take a compass, go out, look at your dishes pointed. You're going to find that every damn one of these things is pointed in the same direction in your area. There is none of these pointed at a cell tower. And in most cases, there are no cell towers where this service is because it's more expensive than, say, cable. So this is one thing that they got wrong. And with this, I am willing to make an argument that I can prove the Earth is round based on satellite technology as an academic. So on that one is where I'm willing to make my bet, and I want my Bitcoins.
Yeah, you need to talk to Dave Weiss about that one. Okay. Well, Rich, so have you got anything to add to that, or?
Well, I have a question. I have a question for Mobius. The question is, when I use a satellite phone, for example, so say I'm talking to Japan, and how high is the geosynchronous satellite? Where the sat phone satellites? How high of an orbit are they in?
If it's fixed, it's 22,300 miles. Now, okay. Some of the satellites, like for the radio and things, they do a figure 8 weird orbit, so you're actually switching off. And the same is true of of the satellite internet now. It is much lower, and you have this like mix of passing satellites, so you're not using one. So they're more like about 550. We have a video about that. I can actually share with you to add on the link, because we had so many people seeing these just after sunset that Joshua got so annoyed with the media calling that we made a video so we can just send the link where everybody sees these passing over in strings, especially after being launched. So the low ones are 800. The geostationary is 22,300 miles. I did the math
So
back.
that's not, even at the maximum, that's not enough of a distance to have a significant delay in the conversation, is it?
You get between electronic processing and everything less than about a second. And the delay to the moon and back is
That's
exactly 1 second each way.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, that was just a question that you answered that. Hey, thank you. I learned something new. I did not know that about the multiple satellites handling the sat calls.
Yeah. Well, I'd say the next question, I thought that really maybe, I mean, this really did make me think about, okay, is there something strange going on here? And that was, how come does the Earth's surface maintain an atmosphere? In other words, we have oxygen, nitrogen, whatever. It stays close to the Earth. This is what we breathe. This is the air that we breathe. And we're right next to, you corrected me. It's not exactly a perfect vacuum, but it is a vacuum nonetheless. It's on the other side of the ionosphere. Okay. Now, my question is, what is it that makes these gases stay close to the Earth and are not, because we're dealing with a vacuum, that they don't equalize pressure and just get sucked away from the Earth's surface and, and this just basically travels into space? And, I've heard theories, oh, it's the gravity of the Earth. Well, okay, I'll go with that. I have some experiments I like to see first before I'll buy that 100%. But when you have a vacuum, and everybody here has seen these experiments where you have a vacuum chamber, you have a colored gas, you flip a switch, and immediately what happens is that vacuum. I mean, it's almost explosive. That vacuum is immediately, the gases immediately enter that vacuum and equalize pressure in both chambers.
The Earth
So,
has a massive amount of gravity compared to, say, the moon or Mars or some other planet, but whereas Jupiter has a huge amount of gravity. So we have a combination of effects. Now, I am not a physicist, so I'm not going to have a debate with experts where I'm outside of my academic expertise. But you also have ionization. You see, in the auroras that happen, you have gravity, and you have the epicenter of the Earth. So around it, we have the atmosphere. Planets can lose an atmosphere. As I understand, Mars at one point had an atmosphere. They lost their magnetic sphere, and they also lost their atmosphere from the amount of energy that came through and just destroyed it. It leaked. So Earth,
Supposedly ours is leaking too over a long period of time, and we have a magnetic we have a magnetic core, and the lines of force that go from the north to the south pole. I don't know what role that they play, but they definitely play a role in the aurora.
they also protect the Earth from being bombarded with the particles that excite the gas and cause it to be released. Without this magnetic, we would lose without magnetic shield or atmosphere, just like Mars did. So it is a part of the entire equation that protects us. But the vacuum of space is not like a vacuum cleaner that has negative vacuum. It's a neutral vacuum. So at the edge of the atmosphere, it's not very dense. It becomes like lesser and lesser. You know this as a pilot. At a certain point, you need oxygen, else you're going to die. You don't go up to 40,000 feet in a Cessna with no oxygen mask.
Yep, about 10,000 feet up there, you're required to use oxygen.
Yes. So it gets lesser and lesser the higher you get because of the density of the atmosphere and its excitement. But it does reach farther out when we have like solar flares and something. It actually reaches up, and that is what causes some satellites to come crashing in
That's
sooner.
right. It's called this drag.
It then reaches up into that 220-mile radius, and it gets mighty close to the ISS. I think once or twice they've actually had to raise their orbit when we've had a huge expansion of the atmosphere.
Well, I kind of question that. Again, nothing surprises me anymore. I'm not shocked by anything. Uh, Now, kind of shifting gears a little bit. I had to come up with an experiment based on a book. The working title was the double slit Earth. In other words, depending on your perception or your belief system as to what the planet is, it's sort of like the Schrodinger's cat scenario. The cat's both alive or dead. It just depends. Once you open up open up the lid of the box with the cat, that's when it decides to stay in one state. So now I'm gonna put this experiment back, past you guys, since you both have a sort of a scientific mind yourselves, and see what you think of this and what will you change. Now here's the experiment for dealing with a flat Earth and a ball Earth. You have two people with two different belief systems. One believes that the Earth is round. The other one believes that the Earth is flat. And because of this, they're going to think that the ocean is also either curved or flat. The ocean will follow the curvature of the Earth, or it will remain flat, and you can, and there's not, and due to magnification, you're not going to lose anything. So what we would, with this experiment, both parties would have the same identical optics, whether it's a telescope or it's a zoom camera, whatever. I don't care, but they both have the same identical equipment. Now they're going to be on the shore or on a dock. They're going to look at a boat or a ship that's going to be leaving the dock and heading toward the horizon. All right, we're going to calculate. I think the curvature of the Earth is 8 inches squared per mile. So roughly by the time they get about 5 or 6 miles toward the horizon, there should be no way that you can see them, because they're going to be probably about 250 feet below your line of view due to the curvature of the Earth. Okay, they're going to be below you from your point of view. Now, if the Earth is flat, they will be able to continue to see that ship, and from the where the hull meets the ocean, all the way to the top of the sails. Okay, if the Earth is flat. So again, to recap, if the Earth is curved, the ship disappears out of line of sight. If the Earth is flat, that same ship should be still in focus, and they should be able to see the entire ship through their telescope or camera. All right, now here is the experiment. Again, side by side, you're looking at the ship. Now, there's going to be three things that are going to occur. One of the three things that's going to happen here as a result of this experiment. If the Earth is curved, then both participants in the experiment, the flat earther or the round earther, when they look at this, if the Earth is round, the ship should disappear. Okay, if the Earth is flat, for both observers, the ships should still be in. It should still be in line of sight, and you're still able to see it. Okay, number three, the ship will disappear for the round Earth guy, and the ship will stay in focus or still be in line of sight for the flat Earth guy. Okay, simultaneously. That is the three outcomes of this experiment. Now, my question to you guys: I hope I wasn't too wordy about this, and I was able to describe this experiment.
You were very articulate.
Okay. Now, my question is, what do you guys think about this? Do you see any holes in it?
Rich, you go first.
I don't. Well, I don't have an argument against it. I mean, if there's such a thing as a power study, you only have to show that a cat can talk, that show that it's possible for cats to talk. You only have to show one cat. So if you can go out and see and observe that phenomenon, unless you can find an alternative explanation, like a lensical effect or whatever, you sort of have a power study there, which means that you have an observation and you haven't explained it away adequately, So I'm gonna bounce it over to you, Mobius.
Okay, we've had this conversation, and I told you as a child that I never considered something that I did to be, that scientific and a huge study. It's kind of like when you go outside and you see that the sky is blue every day, you don't declare yourself as a sky expert because it's simply common knowledge. But
Right.
as a kid, I used to visit in Charleston, South Carolina, my family. And I always would be down there because July 4th, they had a fantastic fireworks show. And they did it many times from the ocean at the harbor. It was very convenient for everybody to see it. And a lot of people would park along the beaches and near the bridges. And of course, sometimes they even did it. What was it? The Enterprise that's harbored down there? The old battleship, aircraft
Mhm.
carrier? And they sometimes they would launch them from the guns into the harbor. But one of my favorite things to do was I always took either a telescope or if I could sneak them out and she would let me, my grandmother had incredible birding binoculars. And I used to love to watch ships go out and go as far as I could see them on the ocean. And I would watch the bottom of the ship disappear. And I would oftentimes on the bigger ships see, the center section and see the mass of the control area. And then sometimes you would see it sink and just see, the towers, like the smokestack towers, or even the cells of some of the bigger sailboats. This even being true when they would have boats that would loop, that would launch fireworks and put on a show. You would watch some of them go out and go over the horizon. So I didn't realize I was documenting the round earth, but I've seen it. I've seen it hundreds of times. I've seen it at night in the daytime, and I'm absolutely willing to also. They put the Bitcoins up, and John is willing. He's willing to, our friend John, to rent a boat to take us out to the Charleston Harbor with the same equipment and everything, and us all go down and turn this into a party. And what we can demonstrate is one way or the other, the earth is either going to be round or flat in Charleston. Somebody can make the argument, like you said, the lake in Europe that you can shine a laser 40 miles and supposedly see. I can't debunk this. I don't know if there is something that's creating an artificial like flat area there maybe. I don't know why this is possible. There's also something called atmospheric lensing that is associated with seeing Chicago very commonly over the Great Lakes. It allows you to see more of it than you would expect. If you also look it up, you can sometimes see boats that appear to be floating like 20, 30 feet in the air over the horizon, and
Mhm.
you see it with like two suns that some people go crazy and think they're seeing something when it's actually just moisture creating a lens. But the only place I am willing, that I'm positive of what I've seen, is Charleston, South Carolina, that the boats, as they pass out, disappear as they go over the horizon. And I believe it's just a little over 3 miles, you start to see them disappear, and then poof, they're gone. And
Mhm.
hundreds of times I've seen it. So if somebody beside me that believes in the flat earth, I'm totally excited to see side by side. Let's test our reality model. No bullshit. And let's see what happens and share it. Because I am positive of my reality model and having a lifetime of observation of seeing something. And I never thought it was that spectacular. It's kind
Yeah.
of,
What?
to me, it's the same thing as the moon. All around the earth at different times, we see an eclipse and we see the shadow of the earth on the moon. it's round. If it's in the United States and we get a full eclipse, we get a full round shadow on the moon. But it happens all the way around the Earth. And when everybody has a full eclipse, you get a full round shadow everywhere. I cannot think of any model for reality that covers that, that explains the seasons of the Earth, that makes a sundial work, that you get shorter shadows and it's winter in like South Africa right now, and it's cold and the days are short. The days are very long, and it's, man, is it hot here in North America? And the entire element of the changing sun, which we can track live, we can call people in every continent and place on Earth. We can ask them for the measurements of their sundials. When you put all of this into a basic formula, you're going to get around Earth and you're going to get a sun that is really far away. And the science is easy to demonstrate, in my opinion. And on that, these guys put up 3 Bitcoins. I think that if they're willing to put them with an independent person and we go down to Charleston, I'd love to take a shot at it just with the boat model. I think we'll walk away with the 3 Bitcoins and they're going to lose this because I'm pretty positive. And so are
Yeah.
they. Somebody is going to walk away with a different reality, at least in Charleston. Now they may say that, on that lake that they can see 40 miles. I'm not there, and I have no reason to doubt this observation, and I am not criticizing it. But in Charleston, I would say that every day of the week you're going to get a little over 3 miles. You're going to get boats that vanish. Rich, you're up.
Yep. Well, I was going to point out one last thing about the spherical nature of things. For example, when I've been an amateur astronomer since I was a kid, since I had a telescope when I was 12 years old. I've been looking at the sky my entire life. I do it to this day, as you know. And when I get my telescope out and I'm looking at a crescent moon, it's so obvious that it's a sphere because you can see the curvature of it from this distance with the craters, and you're looking at it from an angle, and also when like Mars is at its closest at opposition, especially when in the more favorable oppositions, when it's like, say, what is it, 22 million miles away, about somewhere about that, you can you can see the atmosphere clear as a bell, and you can see the polar caps. It looks like a circle to me anyway, but the moon definitely looks spherical. So, and again, and like we're watching eclipses, like you pointed out before, lunar eclipses. You see the circle moving over of the Earth, moving over the of the over the moon and the shadow. So, and it's almost the only interesting thing about that is how the size, the varying size of the sun and the moon. Obviously the sun's like much bigger, but the way that they're they're distanced from each other and the Earth, that's why we get an almost perfect eclipse, and you just see the corona. When you have a perfect solar eclipse, but or lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, and I just found that fascinating that the two bodies appear to be about the same size in the sky when you're looking at them, at the moon and the sun. I mean, relatively speaking. Anyway,
it seems impossible that could be naturally occurring because it is absolutely, as you said, a perfect match for what it's almost like a message that our reality is, in fact, here's your jumping point. It's such precision that it's almost like not luck. It's almost like a message that this was created for you. See.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I tell you, I think you just jumped into the next phase of this show, and is the Mandela effect. And I know you guys, I probably drove you crazy, about the Mandela effect. When I first started with this thing, I said, I think the thing that really got both you guys was the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
Normally we all remember the thing going east west. Now the thing's north south, and I mean, and I've had plenty of different theories. I've heard plenty of different theories as to why we have the Mandela effect now and why things are changing. Literally, physical changes, words on a page, movies, music, hell, even Star Wars models, that you built when you were a little kid, and you look at them now, they're completely different. Stuff like this. And, we got a robot now that has a silver leg. We know for a fact it was all gold, but in this reality, it has silver leg. It will always have a silver leg, and we don't. And nobody cares what we say. It's the way things look on a map, for example. And but it's really interesting here. Now, uh, Rich, you said that you did some research on the Mandela effect and something along the lines of AI and Mandela effect, or that how they seem to correspond. Or you have a outlook on this that's a little bit unusual. Would you
Well,
like to share?
it's not my outlook. I've just been reviewing a lot of people's perspectives on this, and there's a whole host of them. And one guy, Max Egan, maybe you've heard of him. He's got this channel called the Crow House. It used to be on YouTube until he got kicked off, and now he's on BitChute and a bunch of the other alternative platforms. But everyone has, so there's no definitive evidence about what it is other than the fact that it apparently exists, because like you said, for all of us, we remember things in very specific ways, and when you go look at them now, when you read about them now, the description is totally different. I mean, little things like the stovetop stuffing thing, and apparently now a stouffer never had stovetop stuffing. Or and the Bible, what's the one you told me about that when I looked it up? And for some people, when you talk to them, they'll remember it the way. What was that? The one about the lamb and the lion?
Yeah. And the lion will lie down with the lamb, and now it's the wolf will
The
dwell
wolf,
with the
yeah.
lamb. Yeah,
Or
yeah.
little things like Gilligan's hat color on Gilligan's Island, just little things
Right.
that are just ridiculous. That like, it's like, why would you care? But when you look at these things, and the multitude that they exist, something's going on.
Hmm.
We just don't know what the mechanism is for it. Is there some advanced tech at work? Is something happening with CERN? I mean, there's a whole host of speculation, but there's nothing definitive out there.
Hmm. Yeah,
One,
I was. Go ahead. Sorry.
one night on Coast to Coast, they were trying to figure out if the midget guy that plays Tattoo on Fantasy Island was dead or alive. And no one could figure out. They were getting extreme answers in both ways. And this particular night, it turned out that they said he was alive. I remember a documentary that I watched that showed him that he was dead, that he had had a bizarre life, that his life was like a sex cult, drugs, drinking, and weirdness with his girlfriend. And he spent all of his money on it. But the night of this Coast to Coast show, he was alive. And people were calling in going, this, all you people are insane. And I went and I looked it up, and sure enough, he was alive. And it described him as one of the nicest people that ever lived on earth, that he invested all of his money in. He visited kids' hospitals. He funded surgeries for kids in need, that he was one of the largest, hearted philanthropists that ever lived on earth for kids. And I'm like, wait a second. I watched this video of him. He had committed suicide, being taken off his property. I have seen this guy every time I look it up. He's either, alive or dead. It changes. The last I saw, he was dead. He is Schrodinger's cat. I don't know at the moment until I look it up. But
Hmm.
now back to the fact, the last I looked, that he had medical issues, that he suffered a lot, he drank, that he did do drugs, and he did commit suicide. And I don't know if sometimes it says he tried to shoot at his girlfriend, but it says he died on the back near the sliding glass door of suicide the last I saw. His life changes every time I look. Here is the question I cannot answer. Okay, all of us are able to remember these. If the timeline changes, why do we remember the changes when others do not? And I'm speaking to somebody I love very dearly here. So let's go ahead and tell him a message and see if he will listen. I have had a conversation with my favorite person in the universe, Joshua Warren, where I pointed these things out. And you and I have discussed the Mandela effect. He's not impressed with it. I do not think he remembers these changes. And you and I have talked to him where he has said something has always been A, and we've gone back and talked with him, and he's always said that then it's been B. And he himself did not remember that he originally thought it had always been A. You and I both know this has happened. And it's
Yeah, it's the
bizarre.
Lord's Prayer. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I've had the
Go ahead.
same thing. I've had the tattoo conversation with the changes, and he just simply has no interest in the subject and thinks it's for him, it's not worthy of consideration. And I like anomalies. I would love to go see the 40-foot that you can see lake. I'm willing and I'm open to things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
But here's
I
what
mean,
I think we
go
will
ahead.
all agree on. Okay, in school, anytime the projector came out, this was great. It meant we weren't dealing with school books. The teacher wasn't going to be bitching at us, and we were going to get, a fun, easy hour in class. But this was a great video. It was a propaganda video of how powerful the US is. It was black and white, and it was lots of dynamite and explosions and all hell breaking loose of making the Panama Canal. I know Rich
Right.
has seen it. You've probably seen it. And
Yeah.
it was absolutely frickin' east to west. And it was a virtual straight line through the lakes. And it wasn't particularly a long line, but it was absolutely east to west.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike anybody else here, Rich has actually gone down. He has been there and he drove the damn thing. He knows the canal by being there, and he knows he's a pilot. And now all of us are looking at the whole location, the shape, everything of the Panama Canal, and none of us believe it's consistent with the memory that we were taught, knew, or the reality model that we hold.
And the
So,
entire time that I was there, it was a beautiful experience of watching the locks work, and the ships coming through. It was just elegant, it was just elegant engineering. But
and you
I kept thinking about the directions. I'm sorry.
You were driving a straight line.
Yeah, I could not reconcile the directions that I had remembered it being as a child from watching like these films you were talking about, which we all saw way back in the day, and the talk about building the canal, meeting up in the middle, and it's east to west.
It's east to west.
East. Yeah, and now it's I just could not. I looked at the compass of my watch as a compass function, and I kept looking at it and looking at what I was looking at. I just could not. And I think this was before I knew about the Mandela effect. That's why this was so interesting, because it befuddled me. Why am I remembering this wrong? But this was before I didn't hear about the Mandela effect until Brad told me about it. At least it didn't enter my awareness until then.
Brad asked me if I knew what color that C3PO was. And as a kid, I had all the sci-fi models. And it so happens that I got a limited edition C3PO that had a high resolution color photo in it. And, at the time it was pretty special. I mean, Star Wars was a big deal, Star Trek. I loved all these things. I built the model. I had the color guide. The only painting that was done was the stomach area had to be painted black, and the entire thing was gold. Now, the picture was the actual person that posed for the photo for this limited edition, and he did not have a silver leg. Now the actor says it always had multiple colored appendages. And this model I put together, and I can still show you the model kit online. It's one color. It had red eyes, and it was held together for the arms and legs with a rubber band. So you could pose the arms and the legs. You put it together and it had hooks on the end of them, and it was posable. So I remember building it. I remember the parts before I assembled it. I remember the picture, and for a while I had it on my wall. It was like, a very special thing. It was kind of cool. Limited edition. I think it was like one of like 5,000 at the time. And it certainly was not multiple color. He's like, go look online and look at all the pictures of the mask of like Darth Vader and C3PO. And do you remember this? No, I don't. This is not the same as the original movie that I saw and the models I made. So I even showed you the model kit. It is, as I said, but without explanation to why they made it the wrong color if indeed it had different color appendages.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
have
yeah.
no idea. You keep showing us things, and we keep like, that's not what we remember.
Well, and people will probably go think, okay, what the hell does the Mandela effect have to do with the flat Earth or round Earth? Well, and I always made a joke, the way things are changing in this physical reality. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we all wake up one morning and the Earth's flat. It would, really at this stage of the game, um, I don't think my excitement level would go up a notch or two. I would just be like, yeah, well, yeah, this is just to be expected. And kind of getting back to the Panama Canal, I now remember three different shapes of Central America now. I remember when South America was almost directly south of North America. You had Mexico, and you had like Central America kind of traveled a sort of a north western to southeastern type slant. I mean, it was pretty much north south, but it had like a little bit of an angle to it on the map.
Right.
And then I saw how South America moves east out into the Atlantic Ocean. And now that the west coast of South America is almost parallel with the east coast of North America, and I think like a year and a half, 2 years ago, probably closer to 2 years ago, it was curved. Okay, Central America was it's like a semicircle. It was like part of a circle. It was curved. Now, the last time I looked at it, hell, it may have changed since the last time I looked at it. Yeah, it's out there. It's going a real it's heading directly east, but now it's at a diagonal. It's no longer curved anymore. It's more of a straight line going from northwest to southeast, but more of a eastern slant, if that makes sense. And and again, I've witnessed this on the same damn map. It's changed 3 times for me, guys.
Oh yeah, and you've talked about Sicily before, and then you have like the heart move and the body moving further to the right, or the kidneys like moving from their original position that we remember.
Yeah, yeah. And I talked to a surgeon, and I said, "Well, the kidneys are always like that." I said they were protected by the last 2 ribs of the rib cage. Yeah, and this surgeon's reality, and this guy's he's a good surgeon. He's actually a nice guy. Yeah, in his reality, the kidneys have always been where they're at now.
And what happened to
And
Cuba became a giant. Cuba is
yeah,
now 5 or 6. I remember back in school being taught for the size of Cuba.
yeah, yeah. Cuba's like used to be about twice the size of Puerto Rico, and now that damn
Yep.
thing's the size of Florida, and then it's moving into the Gulf of Mexico. And our mutual friend, Christian McLeod, who was a deep sea diver in the Caribbean, this man understood geography because he depended on it for his job. He knew where all the islands were at. And as a matter of fact, I think it's like 5, 6 months ago, I said, "Hey, Christian, do me a favor. While you're in front of a computer." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Pop up, Google Maps and look at Cuba and tell me what you think." And he looked at it, and guys, he just said, "No way, this is bullshit." So he said, "I've been next to Cuba. I passed by it. It was like a little small island. It was nothing like this. And it was never in that location."
You
So this
also
is,
messed us up with a history lesson. You asked me to look up the fact that the biggest terrorist attack in the United States was done in WW1 by the Germans, and they blew up a large island near New York and even took the Statue of Liberty and extremely damaged it. This
Yeah.
being the reason in WW2 for the internment of the Japanese because of what happened in WW1. But massive explosions, massive chaos. And also, it shows now that the German Navy were very successful in sinking US ships to the point that we had a civilian Navy trying to protect and stop subs and ships. In my history, and we study WW2 a lot, I believe that I recall 3 major successful submarines of the Nazis, and 2 were sunk off of the East Coast, and that they were repelled and just not successful. You asked me to review history that's currently shown, and they had fantastic success, and that we were having huge issues, supply issues, in getting things off the East Coast. I have no memory of this. This was not taught in my timeline, and I don't even know. It's like reading another timeline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I first saw this, I was blown away.
Yeah. Torpedo Row, right off of the coast of North Carolina. Yeah. 500 ships were sunk by U-boats, and 5,000 sailors, U.S. sailors, lost their lives. Hell, was this before or after Pearl Harbor?
This is not a part of my timeline. This is not a part of anything that was ever taught in school to me. And we were taught the opposite. We were taught that the U.S. Navy did an extremely good job. I believe, like I said, 3 occasions U-boats were able, one near New York, one was sunk in off the coast of North Carolina, and there's another one that was sunk somewhere a little bit inland. So that was almost the extent of the success. They were repelled, and suddenly you showed me all this. This is absolutely never before seen. And Rich and I both love WW2. It's strategy and wars, and we're like, I asked Rich, I'm like, Rich, did he even remotely have seen this information before? Tag Rich, talk about this because
No,
you're an.
it just blew me away. I thought, what? I went out online and started looking it up and found out about the civilian Navy and how successful the Germans had been against American shipping and the loss of American lives, pushing these, trying to fight these things off. This was not in my timeline. It wasn't. This stuff, it wasn't taught to me in my timeline. I'll put it that way. And again,
Yeah,
like Mobius was saying, I remember reading about, how several German submarines were sunk, and that they didn't have any real success at all, off the coast of the U.S.
That was when I finally put up the white flag, and that was when I said, okay, this is when I believe in the Mandela effect. I actually at that point jumped on board and said, this makes no sense. This absolutely not once is a part of my timeline. Well, how did I get in this wonky timeline? And Rich and I agreed, in which right there, I guess that puts either one of us probably outside of probably most scientific logic, but we are open-minded. So there's your proof that if something doesn't make sense, we're not going to try to debunk it. We're going to embrace it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. And I'm gonna have to choose my words wisely here because this is, YouTube. But there's a certain place in Poland that that's infamous. Everybody knows, everybody would know what I'm talking about. It begins with an A, and there's a lot of people that were supposedly that died there and what have you, and this one place is that's everybody, when you say gas chamber, everybody has this vision of what a door for a gas chamber would look like, right? Well, I showed you guys the actual door for that gas chamber of the day that place was liberated. Okay, this was taken by Russians. They liberated this place, toward the end of World War II. And I showed you that door, and that door is the same identical door as it is today. Do you remember that, guys? The place I was telling you about. It's nothing but a wooden door. It's not. It doesn't look like the door you see off a submarine. It's a wooden door. I don't even think it had a lock on it.
No, it's not a part of my memory from my history, but you also added the cafeteria and the movie theater. And that's when I set up the white flag again, because that is not consistent with my memories and teachings.
An Olympic size pool. An Olympic size pool. I'm like, what the hell is this? What
So
is
very,
going on
very,
here?
very different. And Rich, what do you think? Were you taught anything like this?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, so it seems like a different timeline. It
But
seems
see,
like we're almost.
I think a lot of us have entered these timelines at different points than each other. You know, we have some continuity among us, but I'm if we were to actually put our heads together, I'm sure we come up with things where we differed on how we remembered them. I mean, there might not
Mhm.
be that many but there are some people that are totally divergent from what we're talking about.
This is like
Oh,
man in high castle kind of stuff here. This is very weird that there seems to be different timelines and people with different memories of different timelines. I have absolutely no explanation for this.
oh yeah,
Well,
Philip
the
K.
closest I
Dick.
have is an esoteric one. I remember John B. Wells saying on his show back in 2012, shortly after that, he goes, "So guys, the awakening of 2012, how you liking it now?"
Well,
Hmm.
I'm not, because the beginning of 2012 seems to be massive chaos, confusion, disorientation, and disillusionment. So, awakening is not necessarily, it's kind of like the Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. Yeah.
Oh,
And you know,
geez.
apocalypse does mean unveiling, and that's one thing that has been happening, is that things that were hidden for so long are becoming. We don't see it all, but we're seeing through a lot of things that we didn't even believe in necessarily, say prior to. And I'm not saying 2012 had anything to do with anything, but it's around that time really that things started happening when you had, you know, Assange and Snowden, and then you just kept finding out about things that were in the fringe conspiracy theory range, and now it seems like we're having a hard time keeping conspiracy theories because they become factual within a matter of months now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Only thing a conspiracy theorist is wrong about is the timing. That's it.
That's
And
it.
yeah,
That's
that's it.
pretty much percent at this point. Every single thing that they've made their stance on. At this point, the fact checkers are out of business because they've kind of imploded on themselves. Uh, FOIA things are coming out, and so Zuckerberg is going around and he's doing a apology thing because his stock was down to 33% of the value on Facebook. It looks like that what he's saying is he's promising that free speech and democracy are going to be important parts. There are going to be no more hotlines into Facebook. His stock value has actually fully returned and is up like $12, $13. So if he keeps his promises, he is apparently doing a Musk and he's trying to do a turnaround on the direction they were going. And so
Hmm.
stockholders seem to believe in his sincerity, and it's reflected in the value of Facebook. So everything has changed. There has definitely been a shift in people's perception and what they're willing to accept and how far they're willing to be pushed and the amount of fact checking and told, what is right and wrong. So it comes a point that people just say this much, no more. And I think we've now crossed that point.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. It's definitely it's come to the point now where I'm not shocked anymore. And it kind of gets back. People say, well, you're always talking about the Mandela effect. What the hell does that have to do with radionics? Well, my point to them was when it shows that reality is flexible, that it changes, that's fluid. Because of that gives opportunity for these machines to actually alter reality. I mean, I think it's working, in conjunction with consciousness and perception of reality. I think that's what's making things happen. So that's kind of like my 10 cents worth when it comes to trying to put all these ideas together and even throw in radionics as the proverbial kitchen sink. But yeah, guys, I mean, this has just been one hell of a conversation. Before we oh yeah. Before we close here, a matter of fact, I want to do this again because I got some other subjects I want to cover with you guys, and I like your input. Now, the next thing I'm looking at here, I want to go ahead and I guess let Mobius. I guess before we close the show here, let's talk about the Sunshine Simple generator. Matter of fact, please, I'm gonna give you like a couple minutes here to plug away. Tell people about it once again, and if there's kind of give people where they contact you, website, and then all that good stuff.
Okay, sunshinesimple.com is my website, and this all was born in Bill Forstchen's driveway with Joshua Warren. We got rushed out to fix his phone line so he could do his first Coast to Coast AM show because it was not clear, and they're definitely stubborn about having clear audio for their guests. So we set out during the whole show and listened to him and discussed it. So what we did is we created a solar backup generator that can be used with the newest iteration. It is EMP proof. This means that if all hell is about to break loose, you can put this thing in our trash can kits that we provide for the kit, and it will survive a nuclear blast, and you will still have electricity. Now, this is not a substitute for the grid. You're not going to be powering your electric hot water tank, running your microwave and air conditioner. That's not what it does. This is essential electronics. Imagine that you're going to have years of no power. This will be your salvation. It will be your lights, your comms, your necessary electronics for survival. This is it. It's cheap. It's $999 in shipping, so it's the cheapest it's ever been, and it has the EMP kit. We, like I said, our first buyers went to the intelligence community, who knows that the EMP attack will be the first likely attack. It's what Bill Forstchen has pushed for years. The danger of this happening, any nuclear attack, is in fact an EMP attack. The grid will go down, and if it's a true EMP attack, the entire grid will go down, and it will go down for a long time. It's not like repairing a neighborhood. So we have a complete solution. We've sold thousands. We support them. We support the buyers. And we can even create custom solutions for labs or commercial use. But it's a damn good product, and there is not one thing like it in the US. So not only is it the best deal, the EMP product, it's the best value. It has no competition.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, fantastic. All right, guys. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time on the show. And I do appreciate it. And yes, sunshinesimple.com. I own one. I carry the miniature version of that. I think it's a 400 watt unit that I keep in my Jeep, along with my bug out bag and miscellaneous items that I think I may need in case of an emergency. And that is with me all the time. And I keep the thing charged. You can independently charge it by plugging directly into a wall, a wall socket or a wall receptacle, and the thing will charge that way just to keep everything topped off and ready for an emergency. And well, fantastic product. And also, I do own
Mobius right now.
Pardon me?
I said, and I have one on order with Mobius right now.
Oh, there you go, man. There you go. So, yeah, exactly. So they must know something. At least we paid them to know something. So we'll, hopefully they're wrong this time. But why take chances? I mean, there's a reason why you have a fire hydrant on the street. You may never need it, but it's good to have it there just in case you do. And that's the way I look at these things. So, all right.
If you read second after, I suggest everybody read it. It talks about the lack of comms and the lack of electricity. It's unimaginable until you've done it. This would be life-changing, and it would be life-saving. So it is one of a kind product, and not having it absolutely not being prepared to have electricity at this point, knowing what we're facing, it's a very bad decision.
Yeah, no joke. No joke. Well, all right. Well, once again, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate this. And like I said, I'm going to get this thing uploaded tonight and get it on YouTube because this is really important information. And I really am glad to uh, have this platform where you guys can come on and talk about it. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, have a great evening, and we will talk to you soon. Good day.